2, 1. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Rush Hour Sports Network. As you're always, Jay Smooth, your main host. And, of course, Benji, my co-host, joining me as he does every week. How's it going, bro?
All right.
That's good. So, week 1 is already in the books. And as you all know, we pretty much go through all the scores for week 1. And then we essentially preview week 2. So, without being said, let's go ahead and fly through. Week 1 started when the Dallas Cowboys were defeated by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 31-29 in a very close game. The Buccaneers, of course, opening the season straight after winning the Super Bowl by getting a win at home. Not a bad way to start the season. The Cowboys, of course, starting from a deficit per the usual. Only difference is this time around is that they actually put up a pretty good effort, but even so, they came up short. Buccaneers go ahead and still win at home. In the second game, the Texans defeated the Jaguars 37-21. Tyrod Taylor ended up having a pretty big day, as well as the Houston defense, who collected 3 interceptions from the Jaguars. The Jaguars did not look good at all. They looked just as sloppy as they did in preseason. I know a lot of people wanted to give Urban Meyer time because he's a new coach, but if you lose your team, like if you lose the locker room during preseason, that's pretty much an indicator that you're going to suck during the regular season, and this is just the beginning of it. The Jaguars didn't really come out prepared. They didn't, they obviously came out like a team that's still learning how to play together, but even so, they don't necessarily have the makeup of an NFL team, especially when they have a coach who is so college football orientated. Did you happen to catch this game by any chance? Or see any highlights?
Yeah, I mean, it was honestly just kind of a skull dragging in some ways. Like, the Jaguars just look outmatched.
And hey, that's what happens when you have a college-minded coach and an entire team full of scrubs. And the thing is, the Texans were supposed to be the scrub team here, but it just goes to show that the Jaguars are nowhere near ready for prime time, especially now that they're not ready at this stage. They'll probably end up being the worst team in the league, or at least the second worst team in the league. They're certainly not going to look any good, though. The fact that the Texans look this good against them tells you everything you need to know. And then, of course, we go to D.C., where the Washington football team lost to the Chargers 20-16 in the close game. Justin Herbert looked pretty good in this one, and actually, the story from this one is that Ryan Fitzpatrick was hurt in the opening moments of the game. He was injured, taken off the field. And the diagnosis is that he suffered a hip injury and that he's going to be out for several weeks. And in comes Taylor Heinicke, who a lot of people remember was the starting quarterback for the Washington team when they played the Buccaneers in the playoffs last season. Heinicke came in and played okay, but obviously was not able to get the football team to victory lane. Instead, they are down bad with yet another loss. Do you have any notes on this game?
I mean, it was a good close game, very defensive. I mean, I think moving forward, if you're a Chargers fan, you gotta be happy about what the defense was able to do in this game. Granted, against Taylor Heinicke or whatever, but hey, they got the W.
Well, technically, it's a W against a team that won the division. Granted, they won the division by limping to the finish line, but still, that's a division winner that they beat. So that's something to still be very happy about. The Seahawks beat up on the Colts 28-16. The Seahawks, of course, continuing right where they left off from last season by picking up wins against bad teams. And the Colts, of course, picking up right where they left off of losing against teams that are good or bad. And it seems like it won't really matter that Carson Wentz is the quarterback, because whether he's on the field or not, the Colts are still not going to be a good team. Even if, I mean, hey, a lot of people said, oh, they're one of those teams that's one quarterback away. Well, they got the quarterback, and guess what? Even if he's serviceable, he still sucks, and the team sucks. So the Colts are certainly not going to go anywhere, and the Seahawks are going to continue to roll. In the Sam Darnold revenge game, the Panthers beat the Jets 19-14. The Panthers looked as good as the Panthers could look when your quarterback is Sam Darnold and your team's not all that great anyway. And then, of course, the Jets showing that not only do they have the system in place to waste whoever comes in as starting quarterback, they have a system in place to waste Zach Wilson as well. So it looks like he's going to join the long list of quarterbacks that get drafted by the Jets, only to be completely wasted and thrown away before their potential is realized. Any notes that you have on this game?
To me, I still think for both teams, we just
Well, I'll tell you this. If it's a case of a New York coach not being ready for week one, I got to say, it sounds like a tradition around New York. You know what I mean? Seems like it seems like their coaches have a habit of not being prepared for week one or week 2 or 3 or 4 or any other week on the schedule for that matter. But
sometimes even our quote-unquote better coaches in the league are not ready for week one. I'm going to get to that game really soon down the list.
Absolutely. Hey, if you're the coach of the Jets, you're definitely not prepared. There's no question about that. And then, of course, in in Cincinnati, the Bengals beat the Vikings 27-24. Not even surprised by the outcome of this. This one went to overtime. That was surprising. But I would say the thing that wasn't surprising is the fact that Joe Burrow was able to connect with his weapons, and that he was able to look good and be upright for most of this game, which is easy to do when you're playing against a trash defense. Of course, the Vikings are the Vikings. You know, Kirk Cousins is awful. One of the worst quarterbacks in the league, mind you. One of the worst starting quarterbacks in the league. The whole game was on Dalvin Cook. And even though people like to give Cousins a little bit of the credit for the comeback, Cousins, of course, came back but then come up short, because that's pretty much the story of his entire career. So underachievers. Well, I haven't said anything that our listeners don't already know. You know, underachievers are going to underachieve. So I can't say that he did anything out of the ordinary here. You know, garbage is garbage. You know, you can try to shine up. You can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. You know, you can only do but so much with that type of quarterback. At this point, I'm waiting for Kellen Mond, just like everybody else in Minnesota, because Kirk Cousins is not it. And then, of course, in Tennessee, really surprising.
The coach that was not prepared for week one.
Wait, what did you say?
I said, here's the coach that was not prepared for week one.
Yeah, he definitely wasn't prepared for week one, definitely wasn't prepared for the Cardinals, and wasn't prepared to get beaten up in his own hometown, well, in his own home stadium, that is. The Titans just get ran through 38-13. You would think a team that has, like, Julio Jones, has Derrick Henry, has Ryan Tannehill would be able to do something, but no, nothing.
I mean, this was a game that I watched quite a bit of, and offensively, they just weren't in sync. They got behind really early because the Titans, if you remember, the Titans' defense was one of the worst in the league last year. And the main reason why they were able to stay in games was because the offense was fine. And you know, if the offense got ahead early, you know, you just give the ball to Derrick Henry and he'll just seal the game for you. Well, this was the opposite, where the Cardinals got ahead early on the Titans' defense, and therefore, that took Derrick Henry out of the game pretty quickly because they didn't need to run the ball; they needed to throw the ball. And, you know, it just goes to show that even though Ryan Tannehill is alright, he maybe isn't the quarterback to bring you back in the game when you're down by a lot. And he just didn't have that connection with Julio Jones. There were so many missed throws that he had at Julio, and Julio had some drops as well. Just the chemistry wasn't there yet. But the Cardinals, man, they looked impressive on both sides of the ball. Titans got booed out of the stadium by their own fans.
They did, and deservingly so, especially when the quarterback is a game manager who has weapons that he can't even utilize. Well, doesn't even know how to utilize. If anything, it speaks to how Tannehill's skill level is as a quarterback, which obviously isn't very high. Good enough to be a game manager, but good enough to bring a team back from behind? No. Definitely not there yet. But it is only the first week, so hopefully they get it together. But if anything, this was not necessarily a good first impression. But we will see what they do. And then, of course, over in Detroit, 49ers beat the Lions 41-33. San Francisco, I'd say, pretty much put on a good display of offense, put up 41 points. You saw the potential that the offense has to actually put up points and do some damage in the future. They certainly have what it takes to impact some teams, but not really sure if they're ready to take that next step yet. They're still trying to figure out what to do with Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo as they do that whole 2-quarterback system per drive, trying to fool defenses and whatnot. But if anything, the Lions actually put in a good effort and almost completed the comeback. But the Lions, being the Lions, they weren't quite able to complete it.
I mean, even still in this game, it was mostly Jimmy G, and Trey Lance, I think, only played like 5 snaps.
Well, that's the point. They're trying to figure out when are the best spots to put Trey Lance in the game, because it's obvious that with that defense, Shanahan wants to try to have like a 2-quarterback look where they fool defenses a little bit. Chicago tried to do the same thing a little bit with Justin Fields, but they're trying to figure out when the best spot is to put him in there. But for the most part, it's something they're going to have to get down a little bit later. It's not like they've thrown him out there constantly, which is good because you don't want too much Trey Lance on the first week. But it's clear that they want to establish some sort of 2-quarterback system.
They do. If I had to go down to it, though, Jimmy G played fantastically. Granted, the Lions' defense isn't the best, but in my eyes at this point, they should just let Trey Lance sit the year out and let Jimmy G have one more year and bring Trey Lance in full start next year.
They should. They definitely should do that, and they should even do the same thing with Justin Fields in Chicago. It's a shame that the league is not as I would say they don't value the quarterback position the way they used to, because quarterbacks used to have nothing but time to develop and sit on the bench and do all that. Now, if they're lucky these days, they get like a year to develop, maybe a year if they're lucky. But in most cases, they just get fed to the wolves right away. So that's why I say it feels like it's only a matter of time before we see Fields and Lance actually thrown out there on a full-time basis, because in this league, they rush quarterbacks too much. Even though there's some QBs like Pat Mahomes where they're lucky enough to sit on the bench for a year, which is the ideal move, but it sucks it sucks that not enough teams do that. And then moving on, we have the Steelers, who beat the Bills 23-16. This was a surprising one. The Bills certainly came out flat, not one of their better games. They made Big Ben and the Steelers look exceptionally well, which is hard to do considering the Steelers are not that good of a team when all they have on that offense is pretty much Najee Harris. I would, because when you have old Big Ben back there and you can win 11 in a row and then choke the last 5 and not make the playoffs, that tells me everything that I need to know about that team. That tells me everything. Not ready to move on from the old man.
I wouldn't go as far to say the Bills made him look good.
Well, they did, because Big Ben should not be looking that good at his age. He's old and he's ran through. The guy should have retired 2 years ago, yet here he is beating the Bills on the road in week 1. That's not supposed to happen.
Well, the point that I'm trying to make is that Ben Roethlisberger did not play well. He played good enough to win, but he didn't necessarily play well. What won the Steelers this game was the defense. It had nothing to do with the offense. The offense played flat the entire game for the Steelers. It was the defense that won.
They did, but the offense put up 23 points. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but 23 points isn't a whole lot.
It's not, but it was enough to win. And again, if you do enough to win, that's what matters in this league. That's why it shouldn't have taken place.
The defense gets more credit for this win than the offense does. The offense still, to me, hasn't proven anything.
While that is true, the problem is the offense being in position to score points should not be happening. While the defense is carrying them to these opportunities, why are these opportunities being presented if they're playing the Buffalo Bills? You know what I mean? The Buffalo Bills should have skull dragged this team. So this lies, if anything, it lies more on the Bills just not showing up, period. This is the Steelers are not this good. They are a fraudulent team on both sides of the ball. And if we're being completely honest, they're not going to be a playoff team this year. They're going to be
their defense was still top 5 last year, and their defense is still good. What lost them is the fact that Ben Roethlisberger can't hang onto the ball and the offense plays flat, and that's not going to win you every game.
And guess what? That's going to keep them out of the playoffs just like it did last year. That defense can be number 1 in the league as long as you have that old motherfucker behind the helm who can't really close it out when it matters. They're not going to go anywhere. So they can.
I kind of disagree. I feel like the Steelers are going to find themselves into the playoffs.
I mean, hey, they'll be limping in. I know that. If they get in, they'll be limping in because they have a Browns team to tend to, and they have a Bengals team that looks like it'll at least be scrappy. Like maybe they'll split with the Steelers if lucky, but I was not impressed by the Steelers. I was more so disappointed by the Bills. That was a Bills did not show up when their fans did type of game right there. At least that's the way it looked. That's the way it appeared. Cause
that's fair.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like it felt like while the Steelers defense after the run they went on last season, that's not a good look. That's really bad. Absolutely. I will say, though, the Steelers are going to be one to watch in the coming weeks because if they knock off the Bills like that, I want to see what else they can do because if they are the real deal, then they probably should be able to knock off some other teams, but that'll be a team to keep our eye on. Speaking of a team to keep their eye on, how about I know they played the Falcons, but how about the Eagles going to Atlanta and putting up 32 points on the Falcons? Jalen Hurts threw for 264 passing yards, had 3 touchdowns and 62 rushing yards. The man was playing right. The man balled out like he was at Alabama or better yet at Oklahoma. It's crazy because you don't expect for Jalen Hurts to have a game like this or have numbers like this, and yet here he is absolutely destroying the Falcons who, I mean, if we want to talk about if we want to talk about teams who didn't show up, and actually we're going to talk about a certain one in Wisconsin that didn't show up. But if you want to talk about teams, that didn't show up, Atlanta is an example of one that just really didn't show up at all.
Yeah, but I mean, at least there's no expectations about Atlanta. Like, I expect them to be at the bottom of the NFL, so it's whatever.
That's true, and I mean, hey, look, them getting kicked in the face is not surprising. I would say the only thing that's surprising is that the Eagles were able to do this. It's like, really? Okay, so the Eagles playing a little bit angry there for the first week. Can't blame them at all.
Yeah, and I think another big thing, too, is just seeing Jalen Hurts ball out and have a great game, not being an Eagles fan, that still puts a smile on my face because of just all the things that we heard about all season long about the Eagles not basically trying to do everything but name him the starting quarterback. So to see him come out in week 1 and ball out and be like, yeah, y'all need to let Jalen Hurts just play. Just give him his opportunity.
I agree, and I just hope that coach doesn't do something stupid like putting Gardner Minshew halfway through the year just because that's his
trade for Deshaun Watson.
Right. And by the way, it's funny you say that too because that trade is very much still on the table. The question is Miami going to pull the trigger or is Philly going to do it? Because it feels like Miami doing it would be dumb because you got Tua there, but the Philly makes the most sense. But what it's
worth though, Jalen looked more impressive than Tua did this week.
That is very true. And you know what? And I bet you Brian Flores, the head coach of the Dolphins, probably took note of that. I wouldn't be shocked. And you know what? And speaking of shocks, by the way, how shocking! Hey, even though the Browns came up very short, they came up short in this game by 4 points. However, boy, did they scare the shit out of the Browns. I mean, scare the shit out of Cleveland. Kansas City, huh? They really scared Kansas City for a minute. They actually went to Arrowhead and they put up a good effort. They were actually up at halftime, I believe. Yeah, I believe they were. And you know what? The Browns, it's funny because the Browns really had potential to close this game out. Baker Mayfield, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I feel like with all that talent, I'm not 100% sure Baker Mayfield is the quarterback for that talent. Because I saw some things at the end of, like, toward their little comeback at the end that made me think, a couple other quarterbacks maybe would have made that throw. Or maybe would have, went with a different decision. Maybe one to run instead of throw. Or maybe, you go one receiver instead of the other. We have yet to see Baker Mayfield truly close out in a big moment. But with that being said, this team is clearly good enough to contend with the big dogs in the AFC. So the Browns certainly get a step up even in defeat. But once again, the Kansas City Chiefs able to come out on top at home despite a tough game. What did you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good win for the Chiefs, but, as you say, an impressive loss for the Browns where they still look strong. And I think it's worthy in time to call them a contender, not just for the playoffs or probably the AFC North Division crown, but potentially to be an AFC Super Bowl participant.
I could very well see that, and I remember last week this was the team that I did say could make some noise and could make a statement. They came very close to doing it, but like you said, even in a loss, the Browns still made a statement. Yeah,
but you bring up a good point about Baker Mayfield. Is he really going to be the quarterback for the talent on the team? I mean, I think it's interesting. I mean, I don't think the Browns are going to get rid of him.
Right. They're not going to get rid of him.
It was one of those things where, Baker Mayfield kind of has that real gunslinger mentality, kind of like Brett Favre.
Right.
Where he's just going to say fuck it and just chuck it wherever or make some decisions that sometimes may not be great, but, it's kind of high risk, high reward in some ways. But
right. And like you said, high risk, high reward. Sometimes it'll pay off, sometimes it won't. But when watching that game and the closing moments of it and watching the Browns in that critical drive, it just kind of makes you think a little bit, like, is Baker really the guy? Is he really going to be the one? Because in that situation, like we've seen Lamar Jackson close out before. We've seen Mahomes close out. Not on Monday night. Yeah, but guess what? We haven't seen Baker do that on Monday night either. So that's the thing. We've seen, but in the past, we have seen other rookie quarterbacks in Baker Mayfield's draft class actually close out games. We have yet to point out one moment in Baker's career where we can say, oh yeah, he definitely closed out that game.
I think specifically because I think he did it a couple of times in like his rookie year, but they were against weaker opponents. So I think that's what we're really missing.
Yeah, that
Baker Mayfield is that signature win for him.
They beat
the Steelers last year in the playoffs.
Yes,
that was more of it wasn't a close game.
Right,
it was kind of a skull dragging because the Steelers kept turning the ball over and the Browns got up big, so there wasn't much for Baker to do at that point. So
I agree with that. So yeah, it's one of those things where we're gonna have to wait and see on Baker, but until he gets that big signature win, there's always going to be that lingering question of, is he really the guy or not? But we're going to have to wait and see on that. Speaking of waiting and seeing, I would say the biggest upset of the weekend. The Saints. Oh, absolutely. The Saints absolutely just curb stomped the Packers 38-3. This took place in Jacksonville because of the recent flooding that was in New Orleans. But the story here, Jameis Winston having a career game of 5 touchdown passes. Actually tied a career high by throwing those touchdown passes. No turnovers, no interceptions. But the big story here is Aaron Rodgers just, I'd say probably the worst game of his career. He's had some games where he's been bad, but this is probably one of the worst ones of his career. The whole team came out flat. You can tell that they were not necessarily prepared. The team looked pretty distracted. The Saints looked like a unit, and they were acting as a unit, and they were beating up on the Packers as a unit. But I tell you what, the Packers team already shaky whenever Aaron Rodgers is not on the field, but this Aaron Rodgers on the field and not at his best, it's ugly, man, and it really puts it into perspective. Is this going to be the year where the Packers just fold and lose pretty much every game this year so Aaron Rodgers can get out of there, or what? It just makes you wonder. Because Aaron's never played by that.
If that were the case, it would help the Packers because then they'd have a high draft pick to potentially draft a better quarterback than Jordan Love.
Absolutely. And, hey, if they drafted another quarterback better than Jordan Love, that means they now have a 2-quarterback system in which Aaron Rodgers would be the odd man out. So even though he's the fucking MVP, which is crazy to say. But, yeah, that would just further push him out the door if that were to go down. But it does seem as if this team did not appear motivated that first week. Now, we still have 16 weeks of football left. So, obviously they can gain chemistry and momentum as time moves forward, but boy, that was not a good display on Sunday at all. Not a good one for the Packers.
It makes you wonder if Aaron Rodgers is just purposely just phoning it in.
Yeah, that and
this is a middle finger to the franchise.
That's what I'm saying, bro. That's why I'm saying I feel like this might be Aaron Rodgers sort of just folding the season in before it even starts, just kind of taking the dive, like you said, giving the middle finger to the Packers on the way out. It certainly feels that way. Because, think about it. There was all the drama in the offseason, and then when Aaron Rodgers got there, the whole thing was awkward from day one when he arrived. And really, that effort on Sunday just really showed a man that did not care anymore, or at least didn't care to be in Green Bay. So I think you might be onto something. It seems as if Aaron Rodgers might be calling this one in. But you know what? You know when I'll be ready to say that if the Vikings actually beat them, if Kirk Cousins can outplay Aaron Rodgers, I'll be ready to say that Aaron Rodgers is quitting.
Well, here's the other consideration too. If this continues for a couple more games, could it be possible that Aaron Rodgers gets traded before the deadline?
I mean, hey, what better way to force a trade than to purposefully drop like the first 4 or 5 games of the season, play like dog shit, and basically send a message to the organization saying, hey, I told you I didn't want to be here. If you didn't want to trade me, then guess what? I'm going to make you trade me. So,
yeah, and the best part is that by him playing that lowers his trade value.
Exactly.
So the Packers don't get good shit in return.
Even though, I will say though, will a lot of teams really consider that as much, considering everything this guy's done up until this point?
I mean, probably not.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you are right though. In theory, it should lower it, but it's like with Aaron Rodgers, I don't know how much it would lower, but in theory, you are right, because if you play that bad, you don't deserve to be rewarded for it. You are absolutely right in that. And, oh, man, this next game right here is one that you and I talked about, and you talked about the Broncos a lot, especially from the defensive standpoint. Man, did they beat up on the Giants 27-13, and Teddy Bridgewater, I haven't seen Bridgewater play that good since his rookie year in Minnesota. I mean, hey, he had himself, I tell you what, looking good, had himself a ball out there. He looks like he'll be the quarterback just to kind of manage things for now, because I don't know what happened to Drew Lock, but Drew Lock's development is not at NFL level yet, so I think sitting behind Bridgewater is probably going to do him more good than harm. It looks like the Broncos are going to be in a good space right now because, as you said, man, that defense is going to be scary, and they caused a lot of problems on Sunday. They were disrupting the hell out of that Giants offense.
Yeah.
Speaking of Giants offense,
they're Broncos, man. Look out for them.
Absolutely, look out for them Broncos, man. Speaking of Giants, they're actually got their hands full with the Washington football team right now. As I'm looking on my monitor here, pretty close game. But anyways, in the battle of Alabama quarterbacks, Tua beat Mac. 17-16, Dolphins beat the Patriots. Tua did not have a strong game, as you and I talked about earlier. And Mac Jones, for his first game, not a performance you want to see from a rookie, especially one coached under Belichick. Got to say, though, the Dolphins look like a team that when enough time goes by and they're able to get their chemistry down, they look like a team that can start to make some noise like they did last year. Tua's going to have to play a lot better, though, because he did not have a good game in this one. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think for both teams, it was just a little bit rough around the edges offensively. It'll be interesting to see, just how these teams progress as the season goes on, both of them.
Absolutely. It'll certainly be interesting to see how the Dolphins and the Patriots are able to progress. First Sunday night game of the year was a beatdown. The Rams beat up on the Bears 34-14. Matthew Stafford, of course, looking comfortable in the new system. He looks like he's going to adjust fast in the Rams system, and it looks like that team as a whole out in LA is going to be a problem.
Matthew Stafford looked like he was having fun playing football for the first time in his NFL career.
And you know what? That's what happens when you leave Detroit. That is what happens when you leave Detroit, man. He literally looked like he was a rookie all over again out there. Like, he had that same glow to him, and he was able to go out there, put up a good performance against a Bears team who, I mean, you and I have talked about before. They're in rebuild mode, and oh damn, fucking Taylor Heineke got killed. But anyways, but yeah, they're in rebuild mode, and even though they're in rebuild mode, I would say the positive about the Bears is that they do have a quarterback of the future in Justin Fields who looks like he's going to develop nicely. But my only fear for him is that they might put him into the season too soon, and I'm hoping not. I hope Andy Dalton can stay healthy for a while and keep that kid on the bench for as long as possible. I think that'll be the right move for them. And then, of course, Monday night, nothing but pain. The Ravens and Raiders. 33-27 in overtime. The Raiders get the win over the Ravens at home in a very close game. Oh man, this was heartbreaking for Ravens fans. I mean, hey, 31-yard game-winning TD pass in overtime to seal it for the Raiders sucks. But overall, this game was, well, actually, I'll let you take it away because I'm pretty sure you've wanted to talk about this game all episode long.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a wild game. Definitely the game of the week.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. So many wild things kind of went on here. I mean, I'm not just saying this as a Ravens fan, but it was very clear that the Ravens lost this game. It wasn't a Raiders win. And it's frustrating, in that regard, because for the first half, the Ravens played well, had the game kind of on lock. I mean, when you consider in some ways, the Ravens kind of, for three reasons, should have won this game. Number one, they were up by 2 touchdowns at one point. And for a team as high power as the Ravens should be with the running game and the defense, that should be enough. And it wasn't the case. But I think the biggest thing, part of this game where it changed was really the fourth quarter. In the fourth quarter, basically from the fourth quarter and overtime, when you look at both of those quarters, all of a sudden, the Ravens defense couldn't stop the Raiders offense. The Raiders offense was moving down the field at will starting in the fourth quarter. I think the other big part of this game too, Lamar Jackson had 2 fumbles. One of them was in the fourth quarter, and the other was in overtime. And both of those were essentially points of the game because both both of those fumbles led to touchdowns for the Raiders.
Right.
That's 14 points that the Raiders shouldn't have had.
Right.
And then, of course, I think the big thing, too, that even with that, you can look at it and say the Ravens should have won this game in regulation. Justin Tucker kicks a field goal that should have been the game winner with 35 seconds to go. 35 seconds to go. And the Raiders didn't have any timeouts, and the Raiders got down the field in 2 plays to kick a field goal to put into overtime.
Unbelievable.
Which, again, for a defense that should be top 10, is completely unacceptable. So, it's just wild. Congratulations to the Raiders for a great win. Darren Waller's a beast. He couldn't be stopped. The only thing stopping Darren Waller in this game for the Raiders was Darren Waller himself and Derek Carr, because I think even though Darren Waller went off for like 10 or 11 catches for like 130 yards, he was also targeted 20 times, so he only caught the ball 50% of the time. But, it still worked out for them. It may not work out all the time like that, but, congrats to the Raiders for that.
Right.
The passing game for them looks good, and then kind of getting by a Ravens defense that, for 3 quarters, the Ravens defense seemed to play pretty well for 3 quarters. So congrats to the Raiders for that. On the other side, part of me feels like the Raiders defense still has some questions. Sure, their pass rush played well all game long, but, Lamar Jackson was still able to get some throws off. I mean, fumbles aside, Lamar Jackson had a fantastic game if you take out the fumbles.
Right.
And the Ravens but the biggest problem for the Ravens offense was that the offensive line was just trash. So that the Raiders pass rush was great, because the Ravens offensive line, particularly the tackles on the outside, which include former All-Pro Ronnie Stanley, they were at the mercy of the Raiders the entire game, where Max Crosby and former Raven Yannick Ngakoue were in the backfield in Lamar Jackson's face the entire game.
Right.
And it was just bad. Lamar was running for his life and still was somehow able to have a good game despite the fumbles. And you can even make an argument that at least one of those fumbles, the second one in overtime, was kind of more due to the offensive line not being able to block for him. And for some ways, if you're a Ravens fan, in some ways you maybe kind of expected it. The Ravens right tackle this year, Alejandro Villanueva, has been known, talk has been, that he was struggling all throughout training camp despite being a Ravens signing this free agency that was supposed to shore up the right tackle spot. And apparently he hasn't even been playing well in practice for the past 2 months, let alone in the game. And then we got news this week that Ronnie Stanley was still playing hurt and is going to be out for week 2. So you got questions now, I think, in general, moving forward for both of these teams. It's going to be interesting to see how the Raiders play, especially next week, because next week we'll talk about it, but they're playing the Steelers in one of the games of the week, I think. That's going to be a real test to see if the Raiders are for real and to see if the Steelers are for real, too. But the Ravens, I got a lot of questions about them. I mean, even as the reports came out throughout the week of just, the injuries still piling up for that team, and seeing them come up short in a game where they had every right to win, given their early lead, given the opportunities they had late to put it away and could not do it, and the fact that they're still losing players, it seems, every day, that I feel like this Ravens team is not going to make the playoffs this year. They're going to come up short, and it's not going to be good for them.
Yeah, it definitely won't be. And it's funny you talk about week 2, because we actually just wrapped up with that final game. We just wrapped up week number 1, and we can use that as a segue for week number 2, because, both of these teams actually do have interesting matchups in week 2 that we can go ahead and dive right into. Right now, week number 2 is actually technically started, because the Giants and the football team of Washington are playing right now. The Giants are up 20-17. Fourth quarter is actually about to start. But then on Sunday, and by the way, did you have a pick for tonight's game, or didn't really matter?
My pick would have been Washington, but we'll see if they pull it out.
Yeah, Washington was mine too, but yeah, not so sure they would pull this one out. So on Sunday, Patriots and Jets are at 1 o'clock. Both teams are 0-1. This is in New York. I'm going to pick the Patriots to bounce back because that Jets team has way too many question marks for my liking.
Yeah, it's a tough game for me to pick. But I'm going to trust the veteran head coaching of Bill Belichick in this case, so I'll pick the Patriots too.
Yeah, it definitely feels like the smarter pick right there.
Even though low-key I want the Jets to win.
Oh, absolutely. That would be great if they could pull it off somehow. The Broncos and Jaguars. Oh, this one could get ugly. This is going to be in Jacksonville. I'm going to pick the Broncos on the road, though. I mean, they look strong in the first week, and I mean, if we're going to be honest, the Jaguars seems like Urban Meyer lost that team during preseason, and week one just sort of solidified that. So I'm going to go Broncos here.
Yeah, I mean, the Jaguars look outmatched against the Texans, and I think the Broncos are a stronger team. So I'm going to easily pick the Broncos here.
Absolutely. We have the Bills and the Dolphins. This will be a good game. The Dolphins got their first big win. Got a big win against the Patriots last week. The Bills, fresh off a loss to the Steelers. This is going to be in Miami. Tua did not have the strongest game for the Dolphins, even in victory. But with that being said, I feel like I don't know. The Bills didn't play. The Bills pretty much didn't show up week one. I think maybe this time they will show up and put up a good effort. But I'm going to side with the Dolphins at home here on this one for an upset.
I mean, this is an early game that could have some ramifications on playoffs, you know.
Absolutely.
But I'm gonna pick the Bills. I think they're gonna come out. They're gonna come out looking for revenge, looking to prove they're not the team that we saw in week one.
Absolutely, they definitely need to make a statement, and beating up on the Dolphins will certainly give them that statement, especially on the road. The 49ers and Eagles will be squaring off in Philadelphia. I am going to pick the 49ers. They put up 41 points. They look like they're going to score a lot more than the Eagles. The Eagles, they beat up on the Falcons, but that was the Atlanta Falcons. I don't know if they're going to beat up on a team like the 49ers. I think San Fran comes into their house and takes a win.
This is a tough pick because both teams really beat up on weak opponents last week.
Right.
And, you know, I think both teams, especially after the performance that they gave, could be playoff teams. The Eagles kind of impressed me a little bit with that win, you know. You know, you picked the Niners.
Yep, I picked the
Niners. The
Niners.
Eagles.
All right.
We'll see if they can get an upset.
Yeah, let's see what'll happen. See if they can somehow pull one off. Going to Indianapolis, we have the Rams facing off against the Colts. The Colts look like a team that's pretty much done before the season even started. I'm going to go ahead and choose the Rams based off that strong performance last week. They're probably going to continue it again against a weak Colts team.
I will also pick the Rams.
Good stuff. We have the Raiders and Steelers going down in Pittsburgh at 1 o'clock as well. The Raiders, of course, got that big win at home. Steelers got their big win at home. I'm going to choose the Raiders on this one to get a big road win.
This is a tough one, too.
Yeah, it is tough.
One of the games of the week.
Absolutely.
I think it will be.
Oh, yeah. I like this matchup.
Matter of fact, really kind of looking at all the matchups this week, I think this is really the game to watch more so than anything else. based on what I think the teams will be at the end.
Right.
I'll pick the Steelers at home.
All right, Steelers at home. Let's see. We have the Bengals and Bears. This will be taking place in Chicago. Let's see. Both. Wow. So this is going to be interesting because the Bengals had that big win, of course, at home, and then of course the Bears coming off that loss against the Rams. I'm going to go ahead and pick the Bears for the bounce back here. I think the Bengals got that win against a weak team, and I don't know. I think the Bears are going to bring them back to reality, even though the Bears are not necessarily a strong team either.
Yeah, I don't think the Bears are particularly strong, but I'm not ready to put my faith in the Bengals on the road quite yet, so I'll pick the Bears too.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it. Texans and Browns. This will be interesting considering what the Texans just did last week and how they actually looked. But with that being said, though, they are going to Cleveland, and I believe they're going to get their teeth kicked in Cleveland, so I'm going to pick the Browns.
Yeah, I'm picking the Browns too. They're ready to put a one in the win column.
Absolutely. Saints and Panthers. This is going to be taking place in Carolina. I'm going to pick the Saints. I believe after that strong performance with Jameis Winston, momentum is on the Saints' side, and I believe they're going to pull out another big win.
I think it could be a close game. You know, the Panthers have some talent, a little understated talent, but some nonetheless. But the Saints did impress. I'm gonna pick the Saints too.
Good stuff. Vikings and Cardinals. Of course, the Vikings lost in overtime to the Bengals. Cardinals beat up on the Titans. I think the Cardinals are going to continue their winning ways at home this time. I believe they are going to beat up on the Vikings, so I have the Cardinals here.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals will.
Yeah, they pretty much will just take over that one. Buccaneers and Falcons. This is easy. The Buccaneers are going to win at home over the Falcons. Falcons don't have a shot here.
Yeah, a skull drag alert here.
Absolutely. Titans and Seahawks. Oh, this will be interesting. The Titans need to bounce back after that humiliating loss to the Cardinals, but the Seahawks look really strong this year. I tell you what. I'm gonna. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go with the Seahawks. I'll go with the Seahawks here since they're at home.
To me, it's an easy pick. I'm gonna pick the Seahawks. You see how bad the Titans defense looked last week? Russell Wilson's gonna have a field day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That question is, though, is Derrick Henry, is it going to be Russell Wilson's arm versus Derrick Henry's legs? So it'll be interesting to see if that happens. But even if so, I think Russell Wilson will be able to outplay him regardless of who tries to step up for him, because Tannehill is not going to be it. Cowboys and Chargers. I'm going to pick the Chargers at home. The Cowboys are better than what a lot of people gave them credit for, but are they good enough to beat an actual decent team? I don't think so.
Yeah, a sneaky good game here. I think potentially the game to watch for the 4 o'clocks.
Oh, yeah.
But I will also pick the Chargers at home.
Good stuff. And this is, of course, a Sunday night football game. Chiefs and Ravens. This is in Baltimore. Must-win game for the Ravens here, considering all the injuries and everything they went through, and considering they had their hearts broken in Las Vegas. I'm going to pick the Chiefs, though. I'm going to pick the Chiefs on the road reluctantly, but I think they could get it done.
Must-win, but it's not going to happen this week. I think the Chiefs are going to win this one, and I hate to say it, but I think the Chiefs are going to win this one easily.
Yeah, it feels like they're going to win.
It won't be close.
Feels like it'll be an easy one. Speaking of a game that normally would be easy, the Monday Night Football game suddenly becomes watchable because not only is it the Green Bay Packers playing, they're playing the Lions. Is Aaron Rodgers and the Packers really that bad? Are they really going to take a dive against the Lions? Or are the Lions really going to beat them? I'm going to pick the Packers for a bounce back, but boy, am I Am I reluctant in doing that after seeing them put up 3 points against Jameis Winston and the Saints? Like, I don't know, man. I know it's Detroit and all, and it's Jared Goff, and it's the new head coach who shouldn't even be a coach in the league, but after seeing what the Packers did, I don't know, man.
I mean, you're not wrong. It certainly makes the game interesting to watch.
It does.
I'm just having a hard time believing that the Packers would lay an egg at home.
And see, that's what's part of the intrigue for me personally. If this now let's say the Packers beat up on a team in week 1 and the Lions, of course, hold their L. Then all of a sudden this game is one of those Monday night games where, like, you and I are probably recording Monday night instead of watching it, you know what I mean? But suddenly the Packers get skull dragged. The Lions put up a comeback that is almost complete. Now all of a sudden we have a very interesting situation. There's no way that the Packers are really going to lay 2 eggs in a row, right? There's no way. No possible way they put up 2 L's the first 2 weeks of the NFL season, and their second one being the Lions. Like, that would be insanity. And for some reason, it kind of feels like we have to not watch fully, but at least pay attention to this game somewhat, because now there's that feeling of, it very well could happen. If Aaron Rodgers is pissed off enough with the Packers, it very well could happen.
We will find out.
We absolutely will. And with that being said, those are the games for week 2. We have wrapped up week number 1. Is there anything you'd like to say before we get out of here for the night?
Enjoy week 2 of football.
Absolutely.
Looks like the Giants have got a couple more points on the board.
Yes, sir. They got that 6-point lead up on Washington right now. Who's trying to mount a comeback at home. Oh my God! I think they just turned they almost turned it over anyway. They're trying to get themselves a win here, but I will say, the matchups are going to be interesting this week. It's certainly going to be a fun week of football watching, and I'd say a whole lot of money to be made because there are some favorable underdogs week 2 that a lot of people could look at. I would say, Jets, probably not. Jaguars, stay away from. Bills, Dolphins could have some betting action to it. 49ers, Eagles, betting action, absolutely. Rams, Colts, stay away from that. Steelers, Raiders, oh yeah, you can bet on that. Bengals, Bears, you can bet on that. Texans, Browns, yeah, you can bet on that too. Saints, Panthers, interesting one. You can look at the betting action there. Vikings, Cardinals, no, that's going to be one-sided. Buccaneers, Falcons, no, that'll be one-sided. Seahawks, Titans, possibly. You can look at that one for betting action. There'll be some good betting action for the Chargers and the Cowboys, worth a look. Chiefs and Ravens, always worth a look. Lions, Packers, in past years, no, but this year, yeah, keep an eye on the underdog betting lines for the Lions and Packers because you might find a gem in there. But anyways, folks, just as B Money has said, enjoy all the games this weekend. A lot of good football this weekend. There's some college football going down this weekend for all of those that really want to dive into football and gambling. But, of course, on Sunday, all of the best games of the weekend will be played. So, on behalf of B Money, this is Jay Smooth here at the Rush Hour Sports Network. We thank you all so much for tuning in. We will see you all next week to wrap up week number 2 and get you all ready for week number 3.